Hi, I'm Andrew with Maxima Racing Oils.
Sweet. And then today I was just going to ask you a couple tech questions. I got 10 of them for you to bang out. Let's see how it goes.
All right.
All right. How many ingredients are roughly in a fork oil? Like if you had to name, is it just one thing? Like is it just...
No, they all start with the base oil. The base oil may be synthetic or it may just be petroleum. And then there's several different additives to deal with anti-foaming, minimize stiction. So there's quite a few components that go in.
Cool. So it's kind of a big complex puzzle of getting it right.
Absolutely, and getting the balance correct.
Okay, sweet. How do you guys develop stuff like that with oil and greases? Do you guys just do all like manual testing, or is there machines that you use to measure things? Or
yeah, initially we pinpoint what it is exactly we're trying to create, and from there it'll start with lab samples. If those get past some level of testing, then it'll go to the field. Okay. I believe you've tested some of our products as well. So that'd be the next step. And then just testing longevity and making sure the products are doing what they're supposed to do over a longer period of time. So testing can take a very long time. We have a couple products in development now that have been taking us a while, so yeah.
That's cool.
But you want to make sure you got the right product when you come to market.
Is that stuff that you do in-house often, or do you guys outsource some things for like lab testing?
It depends on how involved it is. We're not blowing up 4-stroke engines at our facility, but we have sources that we can go to actually test things to that level.
Cool. At a company like Maxima, how many raw materials do you guys go through or use? Is it like hundreds and hundreds, or? Yeah,
we have base oils delivered, daily or every other day, and then the components that go into everything we make. I mean, there's so many products, from cleaners, engine oils, suspension fluids, brake fluids. So there's a long list.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I don't have to manage that. Because it'd be a little daunting.
Yeah, because basically you guys will get a base oil and then just mix different elements to create an end result.
Yep.
And like you said, there's petroleum or synthetic base oil.
Yep.
What's the difference between those two?
So a petroleum is just basically oil that's straight out of the ground, and a synthetic oil is a much more refined, has been engineered to a point where it's no longer just crude oil, if you will.
Okay, cool. So, wax, pro, wet lube. What are the main differences between them? What makes them different, and when would you pick one?
Well, I'll start with pro. That is best for dry conditions, dusty. It's the easiest for the average consumer to use. You can apply it, over-apply it, wipe off the excess. It doesn't leave the chain too grimy. It doesn't pick up too much dust.
Okay.
So that's kind of the easiest to work with. Next is guard. Which is intended for wet conditions.
So that's considered a wet lube?
That's a synthetic petroleum based, so it never fully dries. It's intended for riding in the rain, riding in the mud, snow, conditions where you really experience a lot of moisture that could come in contact with the drivetrain.
Okay.
The reason you don't want to use it in a dusty condition is because it's going to pick up dust and debris on the trail, because it stays sticky, if you will.
So what makes a wet lube different than like a pro, which is like just a synthetic lube? Is that correct?
Yep. So pro is basically, it's a very thin lubricant. It's a heptane carrier with a PTFE as the actual lubricating material.
So like Teflon built in?
Exactly. So it goes on wet. The heptane flashes off and it leaves the PTFE behind.
Okay, so basically when you lube your chain with like a pro, it just leaves Teflon layer kind of over everything?
Exactly.
How is that different than a wax lube?
For our wax, they work very similar. The wax goes on with heptane. The difference is the lubricating. So the dry uses a PTFE, again, very light, kind of a whitish color. Our wax is a paraffin wax, so it stays pliable, puts a little heavier coat on the chain than the PTFE leaves.
So maybe it lasts a little bit longer?
Lasts a little longer, it's a little more waterproof. It's great just all conditions lube, so you're riding in the dry, it won't pick too much stuff up, but if it does get wet, it's not just going to go away, it'll hold up.
And so that's kind of one end of the spectrum, and Pro's kind of covers a little bit of both?
Yep.
It's like the easiest, like you said.
Yep, just simple to use. Yep.
Okay, cool. Are you better off lubing your chain the night before, or
Yeah,
Is that a myth?
In the case of our Chain Pro and our Chain Wax, doing it the day before is always better. Pro, it's a little less important. The Wax, it's a little more important because it takes a little longer for the heptane to flash off. When you apply it, of course, it's wet right then, so you don't want to apply it and immediately hit the trail. With our wet lube, it stays wet, as I mentioned, so that one, it really doesn't make a difference if you put it on right before you go out the door or if you put it on the night before.
Okay, cool. So. When it comes to like greases, like I know you guys have like an assembly grease and a waterproof grease.
Yep.
What are the main differences between those? Is it like a chemical makeup thing, or is it just a formulation type thing?
Yeah, the two, they're both NLGI2 ratings, so they're the same weight or viscosity, but very different components. So the assembly grease is a smoother, more buttery grease. Our waterproof grease is very tacky. It's meant to stay in place wherever it touches, it sticks. So those would be the two biggest differences on the grease. Yeah.
Cool. What makes suspension fluid unique compared to like a motor oil? And why wouldn't you be able to run like a motor oil inside of a fork? Or what are the differences there?
Yeah, there's our suspension fluid for bicycles is completely built from the ground up. Our plush fluid was designed to operate at the temperatures that a bicycle operates at, which are much lower than that of power sports fluid. So the fluids that supercross racers are using, made by Maxima, are very different than our plush fluid.
Okay.
Plush is meant to work at that lower 40°C temp, which is more important than looking at 100°C, which is where a lot of viscosities are measured. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So pretty different fluids.
Yeah, and then with the motor oils, is there other things too, like detergents and things in there that are not in us?
Yeah, there's different additives for depending on what you're looking for, whether it be zinc or phosphorus, different things for inside an engine where there's combustion and heat, and it's just very different operating conditions than suspension.
Okay, cool. What is harder to make for you guys, a mountain bike or a moto suspension fluid? Because I've heard in the past that like mountain bike suspension actually moves at a higher shaft velocity sometimes than a moto. So
yeah, I'm gonna say in this situation, because we've been at it for so long with the power sports fluids, I think we've got a really good handle on what's required there. We have been making plush for 2 years with really good results on that. So I think we've got that pretty well figured out, but you can never be totally confident, with the constant changing of technology.
Yeah.
There may be something else required. Bikes are now getting heavier again with the e-bikes and different things. So you're never finished.
Totally.
You got to keep working towards that goal of ultimate performance.
Okay, cool. And with the e-bike stuff being said too, on like the e-bike side, are you guys noticing anything different with like the increased load on the drivetrain from like a mid-drive motor?
Yeah, there's so much more torque being put on the bikes, and one of the biggest things for us that we identified right away is the brake fluids. The e-bikes are so much heavier. They generate a lot more speed very quickly. They weigh more. It's just a lot of things that go into it that people maybe don't think about right away. And I think now brake companies are starting to look at that, and us as a manufacturer of brake fluids, we've got some really good solutions there that come from the highest level of racing, but that trickle-down technology will help an e-bike rider.
Okay, cool. Sweet. I think that pretty much does it for me. Thank you for kind of answering some of those. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Interesting stuff.